discrimination of in our country.
Our rights come from nature and God, not from government.
All God asks of you is faithfulness, faithfulness, faithfulness.
Fighting for the family, standing for the church, laboring to return to a moral and biblically based culture.
This is the American Family Association at AFA Today.
Kevin McCullough is glad to be with you from a very wet and miserable Times Square shot there that you see if you're watching on the AFA channel. It is just it's just an unbelievably uncomfortable, wet, soggy mess in New York these days, and we are grateful that you're with us anyway. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you along. We've got some interesting things to get to, and we're going to get to the news. But as I promised last week, we are starting a brand new initiative today, and we have wanted to get this initiative underway for a couple of weeks, but we have held our powder. We've kept our powder dry, if you will, so that we could do this the right way. We have made mention that there's probably no greater good that could be done for our country this year than to call all of us that have the ability to do something that are concerned about the welfare of our nation, that are saying, please don't let this be the end of America or of free religious expression in America and a number of other things. So you've heard us talking about those stories. You've heard me talk about how the newfound sexual freedoms and rights that are not even embodied in the Constitution have somehow become the primary focus of everyone that practices constitutional law. So, Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you, but we are saying today that we're going to start taking a new step in a different direction to try to do what we can to contribute to the solution while we continue to talk about what the problems are. And that got started for me in a couple of profound ways quite some time ago, the first time that I had Pastor Jim Cymbala on this broadcast. And when we discussed the greatest challenges, I was struck by how when he had gone through his own time of public life and ministry, coming and becoming the pastor of the Brooklyn Tabernacle and some other things, and you can go back and listen to those broadcasts, that prayer footnoted everything that he did. Actually, it didn't footnote it, it led the way. If you study American church history, you will understand that before every major significant revival that's ever taken place, a movement of prayer predicated that. Well, if I have the ability to know, number one, that prayer is something that we're more in need of, and number two, know that our nation needs revival in the deepest sense of the word, and I'm not willing to say maybe we should pray, then I'm not really contributing to the solution. I'm being the problem. So I just want to encourage you to especially be tuned in on Mondays, because every Monday we're gonna give you a focus for the week that you can add to your prayer life, that you can take step by step into your times of prayer, and as a nation we can focus on, we can become rallying around a flagpole, if you will, around these ideas that actually Pastor Cymbala from the Brooklyn Tabernacle is going to graciously help provide for us. So this is this week's prayer focus, and if you signed up and you got the newsletter, then this was delivered last night to your inbox. You already know you're a little bit ahead of the game, and if you would like to get the notifications in advance, so even if you miss the Monday broadcast, then you have the focus for the week. I'm going to print these out and keep them right by my personal study area every day, so that as I'm working through my personal study, this top-of-mind prayer focus will be right there with us. But today I want to go back to something that Pastor Cymbala said in one of his Christmas messages. And we know that over the past 50 years, the Brooklyn Tabernacle has accomplished a great deal in a very, very tough neighborhood and tough situation, and prayer has always kind of bathed that church in its blessing and in its ministry. But in the Christmas season, Pastor Cymbala did a series of messages, and he also tweeted the following. He said, "When Joseph and Mary fled to Egypt to protect the baby Jesus from Herod, they were supported by the gifts that the Magi had provided them, the gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We as believers in Jesus Christ need to know, not just believe, we need to know that God is going to provide whatever is necessary for His plan in our lives. We need to be willing to be led by Him. That was what Pastor Cymbala tweeted. And so for this first prayer focus for the year of 52 that will come, we would like folks to pray that we would that our nation, but specifically those of us that reach out and call out to God, that there would be a new profound element of complete trust in His provision that we would be able to take on. That's the first prayer focus for the year, that we would trust completely that God will provide what is necessary for His will and His plan to be accomplished, not just in our personal lives, but in the work of His people and His kingdom around the world, but also here in America as well. So that's this first week's focus. And friends, I don't know if you struggle with that at all, but I do sometimes. I look at the economy, I look at the presidency, I look at the different things going on around me, and I say, God, if we don't figure out a solution to this, if you and I don't, like He needs me or something, if we don't start making this happen, then we're going to have some real problems. God's like, no, Kevin, you shut your mouth. Let God do what is necessary to be done. I just want you to talk to me. I just want you to be in fellowship, not just relationship, but in fellowship with me. Friends, this is our first step of 52 that are going to take us through the year. But this week, I want you to pray that those that are part of God's work here will trust more completely in His provision. Now, going back to his illustration on Twitter, when the Magi came, historically what happened. The edict was out. All the boys were supposed to be killed. And as Mary and Joseph were fleeing back to Egypt to try to escape that oppression so that Jesus would not be captured and killed, that there was this need that they would have going from point A to point B. And as they left where they were and were on their way to where they needed to go, they had gold and frankincense and myrrh. They had very valuable substances that basically supported them financially for what they needed to experience and to get through in that traumatic period of time. How did they come? They came because God directed wise men who didn't even know them to show up and give them to them. Those gifts came because God was providing in advance for what He knew would need to be done. Friends, there's no question that He can do that again today, in this life, at this time. So for your prayer time, in your walk this week, depend more greatly on Him. Ask God for a greater measure of complete trust as you seek to do His will this week. And here's the promise. He will provide it. He will provide it. You do not have to doubt. Complete trust in His provision. That's week one's prayer focus for what we're calling affectionately Prayer 2014. We haven't figured out what else to call it yet, so we're just going with Pray 2014. And by the way, if you still haven't signed up to receive the focus in your own inbox, you can get that by just going to Pray 2014 and sign up right there. Some of you are still emailing me your desire to be on that list. We'll make sure all of those get on. But it's now easier if you just go to Pray 2014, Pray 2014, and sign up for yourself at that point. And then this will be an automatic process. Every Sunday night or Monday morning, you will be getting the prayer focus for the following week. And there's not any doubt about whether you're going to get that or not. Now, speaking of prayer, it's so ironic that we're starting our campaign to ask the nation, ask the followers of Jesus to pray more earnestly. And right out of the chute, we come up with a story where people that did something that I feel like is more natural than anything, almost anything else you can imagine. They prayed for a fellow friend in need, and they are being now punished by the school district that they teach. In fact, this is taking place in Houston. Those of you hearing us in Houston today, you may already know about this story. But for those that don't, Brent, do we have the video ready For those that don't, we wanted to bring you up to speed on. It's the bus driver story. This is the bus driver from Houston. Okay, we're working to make sure that video is ready. Okay, so take a listen to what's happening.
Fighting for their right to pray. Some HISD bus drivers got into trouble with the district for praying one morning. Now they're fighting back, and they have growing support. Eyewitness News reporter Deborah Wrigley is live at HISD with more on how it all started and what the bus drivers hope will happen now. Deborah?
They were not suspended, but they were reprimanded, and now they want those reprimands removed. So do some pastors. On December 16th, a 12-year-old girl was struck by a car as she walked home from school in North Harris County. She would later die from her injuries. She was the daughter of an HISD bus driver, and her co-workers rallied around her.
From a parent point of view, also a grandparent point of view, prayer is the key, and it is the answer.
As news of the tragedy spread among the community of bus drivers, they spontaneously prayed for one of their own who was grieving, joined not by holding hands, but by using a back channel on the bus radio system.
And somebody else heard it, and they called. Somebody else called in and reported to the administration, and still dealing with the situation. They just chose to write them up.
At least 5 drivers had disciplinary letters placed in their personnel files. They say they were told the use of school equipment for private purposes is a violation of policy. Today, in front of the administration building, the workers joined by ministers.
There are a number of ways to have this resolved. Some of the preachers and pastors here are very concerned.
Who prayed that the reprimands would be removed from files.
That you erase it off the bus drivers' records, God. Lord God, I pray, Lord, that you will bless these bus drivers, God, for blessing you, God.
The issue created by prayer, they believe, can be answered by it.
So I think that they do need to have some fair treatment. You've heard most of the stories. Now let's talk to the Lord in prayer.
We contacted HISD for a comment, but the administration office is closed for the holiday. Our phone calls have not yet been returned. In North Houston, Deborah Wrigley, 13 Eyewitness.
All right, so that's how it went down this weekend. So imagine this: imagine you're a bus driver in the Houston Independent School District, and you get word that one of your co-laborers, as another bus driver, that her daughter, her 12-year-old daughter, is struck by a car as she's walking home from school. Yeah, imagine being the mom on her bus route as she hears that news. Imagine the need that immediately you feel as a friend to that driver, and the desire, friends, in a public school setting for 5 to 10 to 12 bus drivers to want to pray immediately for that mother and for that daughter. I think that's rather profound, given how secular and hostile to God our culture generally is. But imagine, would you even stop to do anything else? Would there be anything else that comes to mind? Oh yeah, my daughter is under this tragedy. She's taken to the hospital. She may be near death. She ends up dying. I'm going to sit here and think, no, I can't use the CB that's in my my radio on the bus. Should these bus drivers be reprimanded for breaking the Houston Independent School District's policy of using public materials for private purposes? That's what they said, private purposes. This is AFA Today on AFR Talk. I'm Kevin McCullough. Punished for praying. Your calls on this right now.